1. Introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to residents against wood smoke emission particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates, or RAWSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this RAWSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning. Wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, residents against wood smoke emission particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Episode 5070 HU3 May 30, 2025 Canadian wildfire smoke and US cancels bird flu vaccine development. In Episode 5070 HU3 Zero RAWSEP View 1-2 Headlines 3 Canada wildfires prompt state of emergency in Manitoba and force evacuations. 4 US cancels contract with Moderna to develop bird flu vaccine. 5 Asked about TACO, which stands for Trump always chickens out TACO and tariffs. Trump lashes out at reporter. 6 Trump always chickens out TACO jibe ruffles. Trump feathers. 7 Federal Reserve issues rare statement asserting independence amid Trump pressure. Federal Reserve. The Guardian. 8 New York City culture when the show goes on. How did Broadway achieve a record-breaking season? Main content. Zero RAWSEP View. Is Trump along with RFK Junior afraid of even contemplating a possible pandemic, and so he bans bird flu vaccine development that can prevent one and limits recommendations for who should receive the COVID-19 vaccine this fall of 2025? Is Trump afraid of even contemplating possible climate change and so bans congestion pricing in New York and promotion of electric cars in California, which could prevent PM 2.5 from car exhaust? And Trump threatens axing heat pump rebates that offer cheaper alternatives to indoor residential wood burning, which could prevent PM 2.5 air pollution from at least that residential source of air polluting wood burning. Or does Trump only chicken out TACO style about his own tariffs? Hopefully this name TACO King, which Trump is currently called, will not goad Trump to foolishly glom even more onto Trump's stupendously stupid and destructive tariffs. Although the United States Senate could stop the Trump tariffs if the United States courts ultimately do not stop Trump tariffs. One Headlinest. The New York Times, May 29, 2025 Canada wildfires prompt state of emergency in Manitoba and force evacuations. The New York Times. US cancels contract with Moderna to develop bird flu vaccine. The New York Times. Trump tariffs after court blocks the Trump tariffs. American trading partners weigh next moves. The New York Times. Asked about TACO and tariffs, Trump lashes out at reporter. The New York Times. Court tariffs ruling upends the Trump trade strategy. The New York Times. Is Nippon Steel finally about to land US deal? The New York Times. Opinion. The Trump world idea that has pushed me over the edge. The New York Times. The Trump tariffs turn the Porsche headwinds into a violent storm. The New York Times. US ports grapple with on-again off-again tariffs. The New York Times. Musk. Elon Musk and the DOGE cuts continue to reverberate with federal workers. The New York Times. Musk leaves Washington behind but with powerful friends in place. The New York Times. Opinion. Elon. The Musk legacy is disease, starvation and death. The New York Times. Tariff ruling gives businesses hope, but they are soon ignored again. The New York Times. Tariff rulings inject new uncertainty into Trump trade strategy. The New York Times. Medicine and health. Robert Jarvik, a designer of the first artificial heart, dies at 79. The New York Times. White House health report included fake citations. The New York Times. What can you do about tinnitus? The New York Times. Fake heroes. Bernard Kerik. The New York Police Commissioner on 9/11 dies at 69. The New York Times. Climate change. Glacier collapse in the Swiss Alps destroys most of a village. The New York Times. San Francisco leader faces recall after drivers lost their Great Highway. The New York Times. Historical figures. Harrison Ruffin Tyler, grandson of the 10th president, is dead at 96. The New York Times. Spelling Bee highlights Faison Zaki, once a runner-up, is now a winner. The New York Times. Trump corruption. The Trump flurry of pardons signals a wholesale effort to redefine crime. The New York Times. Trump miscellaneous or Trump corruption. Trump nominates a former far-right podcast host to head an ethics watchdog. The New York Times. Greenland still autonomous nation with direct flights from the U.S. Greenland awaits more tourists. The New York Times. 2 Headlines. The Guardian, May 29, 2025 Climate change. Appalachia flooding could end southern Appalachia. The scientists on an urgent mission to save lives. Trump administration. The Guardian. Hawaii. Sexual exploitation and domestic violence soared after Lahaina wildfire report finds Hawaii fires. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Trump always chickens out TACO jibe ruffles feathers of the President Donald Trump. The Guardian. The Guardian view on the Trump tariffs. The courts have drawn a line, so must Congress. Editorial. The Guardian. Trump wins temporary reprieve as he fights against court block on tariffs. Trump tariffs. The Guardian. Trump corruption. Federal Reserve issues rare statement asserting independence amid Trump pressure. Federal Reserve. The Guardian. It has been a big beautiful Week of bad news for Trump, but do not expect it to stick. Zoe Williams. The Guardian. Medicine and Health. New AI test can predict which men will benefit from prostate cancer drug. Prostate cancer. The Guardian. Musk. So long Elon, the cuts did not go to plan, but you completely shredded your reputation. Marina Hyde. The Guardian. The chaos Elon Musk and DOGE are leaving behind in Washington. Elon Musk. The Guardian. Trump corruption and El Salvador. The Trump lawlessness is emboldening the El Salvador brutal regime. Noah Bullock and Axing. The Guardian. Trump corruption. We are minimizing the horror of the Trump military birthday parade. Judith Levine. The Guardian. New York City culture when the show goes on. How did Broadway achieve a record-breaking season? Broadway. The Guardian. United Kingdom. British-born Liverpool driver mows down soccer win parade goers. What have I seen in Liverpool this week? Kindness in person and conspiracies online. Liam Thorpe. The Guardian. Ukraine versus Russia and North Korea. Ukrainian cities terrorized by North Korean weapons in Russian hands. Report. The North Korea. The Guardian. 3 Canada. Wildfires prompt state of emergency in Manitoba and force evacuations from northern Manitoba to the capital city of Winnipeg, where centers with air purifiers are available, and also force evacuations from the neighboring province of Saskatchewan, where the editor of RAWSEP has relatives. RAWSEP View. Canadian wildfire smoke incursion into the United States, including Wisconsin, expected all day on May 30, 2025. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Thousands evacuate as wildfires rage in the Canadian prairies. The premiers of Manitoba and Saskatchewan declared states of emergency in each province as out-of-control fires threatened communities. 2 neighboring provinces in the Canadian prairies have declared states of emergency as dozens of wildfires have flared up and grown out of control, displacing thousands of residents. Scott Moe, the premier of Saskatchewan, issued the emergency order on Thursday, one day after his Parawap canoe of Manitoba did the same. 15 communities have been evacuated across northern Saskatchewan, a rural region home to several Indigenous reserves. The forecast showed no signs of much needed rain, while warm overnight temperatures and expected high winds could accelerate the flames. The Canadian wildfire season had a grim start in Manitoba in early May, with the deaths of 2 people who were trapped and killed in a small western town before they could evacuate. The emergency orders are for at least 30 days. Wildland firefighting crews from British Columbia to the west and Nova Scotia to the east are already at work helping put out the Saskatchewan blazes. In Manitoba, about 17,000 residents are currently under evacuation orders as fires rage in the north and east of the province. The Manitoba premier urged residents to head toward urban areas like Winnipeg to access temporary housing and emergency assistance. This is the largest evacuation that Manitoba will have seen in the living memory of most people so far this year. Saskatchewan and Manitoba have seen the most damage from the Canadian wildfires, with 1.5 million acres burned across the 2 provinces. That is an area roughly the size of Delaware. Canada experienced record-breaking wildfires in 2023, which turned out to be the biggest cause of global carbon emissions that year. In 2021, the country was struck by a crippling heat wave that wilted parts of the Pacific Northwest. The heat dome caused 619 heat-related deaths in British Columbia, fueled a wildfire that destroyed a town in the province and stoked widespread droughts, prompting handfuls of farmers in Manitoba to sell off their cattle herds. Unable to feed the animals, the country had a reprieve in 2024 with a milder wildfire season in June. Western Canada tends to get the most rain. If we get that rain in June, it might keep things quieter leading into the summer, but if June comes out dry, it sets the stage for an active summer fire period. For U.S. cancels contract with Moderna to develop bird flu vaccine. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has repeatedly questioned the safety of nanotechnology, which is used in the modern shot. RAWSEP View. Canceling the United States contract for a Moderna vaccine for bird flu makes the world less safe. What is a vaccine? NA stands for neuraminidase. See the photo of Dr. Alfred Gottschalk using paper chromatography to detect and purify neuraminidase, the receptor-destroying enzyme of the influenza virus. This important enzyme is now known as neuraminidase or NA. In 1957, a researcher named Dr. Alfred Gottschalk discovered influenza viruses contain an enzyme neuraminidase which releases the sugar sialic acid. Sialic acid is an important sugar molecule in humans, controlling interactions between different cell types in the body. There are neuraminidase replace flu vaccines. For example, neuraminidase is a surface protein on the influenza virus that plays a key role in viral replication and propagation. It helps the virus to release itself from host cells, making it an important target for vaccines. Technology at Moderna works as follows in developing mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. mRNA vaccines use mRNA created in a laboratory to teach our cells how to make a protein, or even just a piece of a protein, that triggers an immune response inside our bodies. This immune response, which produces antibodies, is what helps protect us from getting sick from the germ in the future. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has incorrectly and repeatedly said that the COVID vaccines using were the deadliest vaccines ever made. Experts said his views were out of step with the science. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, May 29, 2025. The Trump administration has delivered its latest blow to vaccines, canceling a nearly $600 million contract to the drug maker Moderna that was intended to develop a shot for humans against bird flu. The decision also forfeited the right of the United States to purchase doses ahead of a pandemic and canceled an agreement set up by the Biden administration in January to prepare the nation for a potential bird flu pandemic. The Moderna contract built on a previous government investment of $175 million last year. The move was not entirely unexpected. The Department of Health and Human Services said earlier in 2025 that it was reviewing the contract, and Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has repeatedly questioned the safety of technology which is used in the Moderna COVID vaccine, first used for the COVID vaccines made by Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna. Shots instruct the body to produce a fragment of the virus which then sets off the immune response in the body. Moderna said it would explore alternatives for developing the vaccines covered by the contract, which were to be designed for several types of flu viruses that have the potential to cause a pandemic. A spokesman for Moderna defended the technology results during the pandemic speak for themselves, including demonstrated efficacy and a safety profile established in over 1 billion people worldwide, he said in a statement on Thursday. For several years, a type of avian flu known as H5N1 has circulated around the world, killing wild birds and domestic flocks and spreading to a range of other species, including bears and sea mammals, that arrived in the United States in 2022 and has resulted in the culling of more than 173 million birds, frequently devastating commercial poultry flocks. Last year, bird flu also spread to dairy cattle. It has since struck more than 1,000 herds in 17 states and sickened 70 people, most of them dairy or cattle workers. In January, Louisiana reported the death of an older adult who had interacted with sick backyard birds, the first such fatality in the United States. So far, the virus does not seem to spread easily among people, but scientists have long worried about a bird flu pandemic because flu viruses can rapidly mutate and acquire new abilities. The national stockpile holds a few million doses of an existing H5N1 vaccine to protect humans, but it is unclear whether the shots would continue to protect Americans if the virus were to change significantly. The government has 3 other avian flu contracts, according to the health department. Many scientists regard vaccines which can be quickly altered to match the newest versions of virus as the best option for protecting Americans in a fast-moving outbreak. When the next flu pandemic occurs, there is not going to be enough vaccine for everyone who wants it unless we invest to broaden the types of flu vaccines being made and the number of companies that make them, said the director of the Pandemic Center at the Brown University School of Public Health. We should not let politically motivated attempts to unfairly brand vaccines as dangerous stand in the way of ensuring everyone who wants a pandemic vaccine can get one, she said. The Kennedy Jr. ideas for containing bird flu are unorthodox. He has suggested that instead of culling birds when the infection is discovered, farmers should let the virus run through the flocks. Then he has said farmers should identify birds that survive the illness and study them to identify the source of their immunity. Many scientists assert that would be inhumane and dangerous. Last week, Kennedy urged the Canadian authorities not to kill 400 ostriches that have been exposed to H5N1, and Dr. Mimitas, who oversees Medicare and Medicaid, offered to relocate the birds to his ranch in Florida. Kennedy has long waged a campaign against some vaccines, particularly those based on He has incorrectly and repeatedly said that the COVID vaccines using were the deadliest vaccines ever made. Experts said his views were out of step with the science. Pandemic preparedness is about being proactive, fast and adaptable. The vaccine platform is all of that. The rationale given is likely fabricated and more of a function of the RFK Junior assault on vaccines. The value of which he evades canceling this contract makes the world less safe. 5 asked about TACO, which stands for Trump always chickens out TACO and tariffs. Trump lashes out at reporter. The term TACO is short for Trump always chickens out. TACO has been used to describe how markets tumble on the Trump tariff threats then rebound when Trump gives way. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, May 29, 2025. I chicken out? I never heard of that, Trump says about TACO. President Trump lashed out at a reporter. TACO refers to the way traders are loading up and dumping stocks as they react to the Trump on again off again tariffs. The reporter asked Trump. Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the TACO trade. They are saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that is why markets are higher this week. What is your response to that? After an extended non-response, Trump replied, and you ask a nasty question like that, it is called negotiation. You set a number, and if you go down, you know, if I set a number, a ridiculous high number, and I go down a little bit, you know, a little bit, they want me to hold that number. 145% tariff. Trump reacted with ire. I chicken out? I have never heard that. He said, do not ever say what you said. He told the reporter, that is a nasty question to me. That is the nastiest question. But gyrations driven by the Trump on again off again tariffs are by now taken for granted on Wall Street. Stock markets jumped on Tuesday, for example, after Trump delayed a proposed 50% tariff on the European Union that he had threatened only a few days earlier. 6 Trump always chickens out. TACO jibe ruffles Trump feathers. Trump always chickens out, or TACO or TACO for short. Investors like narratives to explain the financial world, and they appear to have seized on this one because they see that whenever Donald Trump faces a market backlash, he will back down. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Guardian, May 29, 2025. It would be fair to say the U.S. president did not take kindly to the suggestion that he was being a chicken when asked by a reporter at the White House about the term that is gaining traction on Wall Street. Oh, is not that nice? I chicken out. I have never heard that, Trump mused on Wednesday in response to the question of one reporter on the so-called TACO trade. He then launched into extended comments on how high the tariffs he imposed on China were and how he had helped China by cutting them. But do not ever say what you said, he added to the reporter. That is a nasty question. Apparently riled, he later returned to the theme, insisting that he was no chicken and that often people accused him of being too tough. But recurrent retreats by Trump have become the basis for stock markets rebounding after falls, even as the U.S. president has raised tariffs to their highest level in more than a century. When the Financial Times columnist Robert Armstrong coined the TACO acronym on May 2, 2025, it was a pithy observation of market reaction to the Trump chaotic policy making. However, less than a month on, one question is whether being accused of being chicken will needle the president to take a harder line with trading partners. 7 Federal Reserve issues rare statement asserting independence amid Trump pressure. Central bank emphasizes nonpartisan role in brief memo. After Chair Jerome Powell meets with U.S. President, can Trump fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell? Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Guardian, May 29, 2025. The Federal Reserve issued a very strongly worded statement on Thursday after Chair Jerome Powell spoke with Donald Trump at the White House on Thursday morning, holding firm on the independence of the central bank amid pressure from Trump to lower interest rates. The 3-paragraph statement emphasized the independent nonpartisan role of the Fed in setting monetary policy based on economic data. Chair Powell did not discuss his expectations for monetary policy except to stress that the path of policy will depend entirely on incoming economic information and what that means for the outlook. The statement read, Powell, who was appointed during the Trump first term in 2018, has resisted the pressure from Trump and has warned that high tariffs could lead to inflation, and earlier in May said that officials are in no hurry to cut interest rates. All statements that seem to have put Trump on edge too late. Jerome Powell is a fool who does not have a clue, Trump wrote after the meeting of the Fed. Trump had previously threatened to fire Powell, though it is unclear whether the president has the power to do so. Last week, the Supreme Court allowed Trump to follow through on his dismissal of officials on the National Labor Relations Board, the panel that oversees labor disputes, but judges noted that the Federal Reserve is a uniquely structured quasi-private entity, implying that it likely will not be so easy for Trump to get rid of Powell. 8 The show goes on. How did Broadway achieve a record-breaking season? The 2024-25 season has risen to a record $1.89 billion, an incredible number lifted not just by big stars and high ticket prices but a variety of offerings accepted by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization The Guardian, May 29, 2025. Given the struggles so many movie theaters and studios have faced while hoping to find their way back to that old sense of normal after the COVID-19 pandemic, it is surprising to learn that a different and far pricier style of box office record was just shattered. The 2024 to 2025 Broadway season is ending up as the highest grossing in history with its $1.89 billion, surpassing the 2018 to 2019 season $1.82 billion. Some of that boost can probably be attributed to star-studded starry limited productions with sky-high prices, but unlike cinemas which can add more showtimes to meet demand, there are limits on how much a handful of shows can contribute to the total. The Broadway debut of George Clooney in Good Night and Good Luck recently set an individual week-long record and has raked in a ton of money, yet grosses for the final week of the Broadway season reflect a far deeper bench than just George Clooney and Denzel Washington. Other shows playing around 100% capacity over the holiday weekend include fixtures such as Wicked, Hamilton and The Lion King, relative newcomers to the musical game such as Buena Vista Social Club, Just in Time, Death Becomes Her and Maybe Happy Ending, and straight plays traditionally considered a less tourist-friendly proposition such as Oh, Mary, Purpose and John Proctor is the Villain contribute to the monetary total. None of those straight plays rely on movie stars. Relatively few are even based on movies or past productions in the 2024 to 25 Broadway lineup. There is trust that the audience can sit for a culturally specific and long play like Purpose. The play Purpose is a family drama that explores the legacy of a Black American family with deep roots in the civil rights movement in its specialized and half-accidental way. Broadway is currently doing a great job of offering material for a variety of demographics. Right now Broadway has the big stars, variety of material and reliable spectacle that used to keep multiplexes full.
Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi, I am Leone. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, The Eco-Design with Stoven International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View Purple Air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.